Okay, so we're recording. Yet, welcome to your Saturday edition of Living A Course in Miracles audio book club. I'm Sue Ann Okerwal Knobloch over here in San Antonio, Texas, and we get people from basically all over the world, up and down, sideways, coming on this. And this has been a nice time for people, especially on the other side of the world from me. And we get a lot of Americans, Canadians here too as well. So. And I always kind of introduce this with like what the format is. And since it is an audio book club, we have an audio that we listen to. It has a video with it. And then if you are ever looking back at this video in the future, you can know that if you just touch on the announcements in the Living Facebook page, you will find the whole scenario of whatever we're studying at that time. And we usually do 30-minute segments that people can listen to through the week, and that take notes or whatever they feel that they want to contribute and talk about. That gives us a format in that first 30 minutes. If people want to talk about other things, of course, we're talking about the Course in Miracles. So sometimes we diverge off a little bit, but how it relates to the Course would be important, important thing to keep it to. And and then the back half, we do Forgiveness in the Field, where we talk about, just what do we think of forgiveness? What's been our forgiveness stuff going on during the week? Whether you resolved it or not, or whatever, people can share, and questions that they have or what have you. And this goes for an hour. And as I said, we tend to have an after party, which means like I turn off the recording and we sometimes stay for almost like an hour, talking amongst ourselves about other stuff, usually still course related. And I try to get on a little bit before it. There's also a Friday night, which is 7 p.m. Central, and this is a Saturday at 11 a.m. Central. So that kind of gets all that administrative stuff out of the way. And the other thing is really always important to remember is that since there's no world and there are no people out there, but we all are appearing to be here, right? We're all split off pieces of the one sonship that now appear to be looking through our eyeballs as if we're our hero of our own dream, right? That we are all only speaking to ourselves. And so if you're hearing different kind of comments and different kind of questions and all different things, always take all that information back into your own mind with Holy Spirit, who is always intimately guiding you on your path, even before there was a course. That we've always been led and guided, and we know that. We could see that through all of history with people who have become enlightened, have become sages, all different kinds of things out there, right? And paths. And this is just a Course in Miracles, of course, right? So anyway, we were just doing, we've been studying for quite a long time now, because it's a lot of material, is Ken Wapnick's journey through the text. And there is a multi-volume book. It's basically a transcript of his talks that he would do on it back in Temecula. When he was over there, and he was doing these as workshops. And what was cool is that he read back through it, and then he thought of additional things. So if you buy the books, you'll get even bonus material. I've never been actually led to buy the books, which is crazy. So it doesn't matter, where you're getting your information from. Again, you're bringing it into Holy Spirit, and you're being intimately guided on your path. That's a good kind of specialness, is you're specially led. And that's where one should always be listening back in for one's voice, right? Of what to be doing next. So anyway, we were doing, it's still in chapter 27. I think we're about at the end of it. And it was minutes 3 hours to 3:30 on the video that's pinned in the announcements right now. But as usual, what always happens with me is I start listening and I hear like maybe 1 or 2 minutes, maybe 5 max of what he says. And there's always so much already to talk about there. And one begins to see the cyclical nature of the text, that it really touches on the same themes over and over and over again. Ken talks about like being like a symphony. So I literally have stuff to talk about just from those couple first minutes. And so it's going to be really cool, because other people, then I'm relying on y'all to come back with whatever else you heard, or, what was going on chapter 27 for you. And so it will be, really cool. But of course, and me, I'm like the like the forgiveness queen or something, right? Someone's telling you like on the Facebook on different course pages where I'm commenting all the time on Facebook that like, well, you're so adamant about that. You're so, I forgot what it was. It was almost like I'm on this crusade or something. And it's funny because like, to me, that is what the doing of the course is. And, so, and it's funny how I read it for 27 years and the word forgiveness is in there 341 times. And I never even saw it until about 5 years ago. So, and it's completely made like an entire 180-degree turn in how I live in the world, like how I don't live in the world, basically how I am all the time. So, and it's because I'm just doing forgiveness multiple times a day. But anyway, so it was really, really cool because he brought up on page, he was talking about on page 575, where he basically started off, and I'll just tell my little highlights from that. So, he was talking about all the questions asked within this world are but a way of looking, not a question asked. A question asked in hate cannot be answered because it is an answer in itself. A double question asks and answers, both attesting the same thing in different form. So like this is super important, like I was talking about with the forgiveness process. So me forever, like for eons, I would come always with my answer already in my question, and I didn't even know it. So I'd be like, Holy Spirit, help me feel better. I feel so afraid. Help me not be afraid. And then basically what I was coming with the answer that I already believe there is fear and that there's a me and that there's a world and that I'm afraid in it. And how do I quit being afraid in a world? And then, so of course, Holy Spirit's answer is there is no world. There are no people. You made fear. I can't take away your fear because you made it. And so it's really goes back to, coming with totally empty arms to that process of looking, because otherwise you will come with your answers already. It says, it is of the illusions. This is what we usually are asking. Of these illusions, which of them is true? Which one establishes peace and offer joy? And which can bring escape from all the pain of which this world is made? So you could hear in there that we are trying to, make the world better. We're, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've been doing this for eons. It's not a sin. And what we are asking for, we have the right to ask for. We've been just doing it in the wrong way. So we're coming already with our questions answered. So we're saying there is a world and there is pain. And so please help to show me how in the world I cannot be in pain. I mean, that is a very worthy question, actually, right? I mean, God, we're so beautiful in what we're asking, right? And so we just like gently saying, let go of that so you can hear a really big answer, right? So anyway, whatever form the question takes, its purpose is the same. It asks but to establish sin is real and answers in the form of preference. Which sin do you prefer? So that's what we've really been doing. I call that moving furniture around in a burning building, so we're going to like solve a little thing and then another thing comes up. Like, isn't that our lives all the time? It's like whack-a-mole. Bonk, I whack down one mole, boop, like at the carnival. Another one pops up, whack, 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 whack. And we never are done whacking the moles. We're never done moving this furniture around. And all we've done is stayed within the thought system. And he talks about looking here. I think he actually spoke with that in his own words. He talked about looking. And so that is again about these two thought systems. So there's the thought system of the ego and then the Holy Spirit thoughts. So when one is thinking with the ego thought system, one's going to have hate, anger, fear, believe the world is here, have lots of pain, suffering, especially with all of that. So he's gently saying, you're still in the heart of God, at home, never having left, and you're dreaming of exile, or you could say you're just dreaming a nightmare with little bits of happinesses to try to keep you engaged, with a lot of like ego screaming. Right. Anyway, so that's enough of me. So I want to just see what you all had on this beautiful passage. I see great people in here. Hey, Kathy, how are you? Teresa's here. Shalom is here. Christina, we saw from the beginning. Tom, Nancy, Karen, and Leanne, and George. Yay. No one is less than anyone else. So I see Eli raised her hand. So she's going to, we'd already talked before, she tends to do hers on the back half, the last 15 minutes of what he said. So let's hear, because it'll be like really informative. So Eli, take it away. Oh, I think you're still on. There you go.
Okay. You'll all use your forgiveness process if I happen to disappear, because my internet is a little unstable out here. Anyway, I'm coming to you from our dining tent here at Falcon Lake Beach Campground in Manitoba. And my, I do my Friday is usually the first 15 minutes. And then I take more notes on the second 15 minutes for Saturday, just so it's different each day from. And then I learn a lot more. Sticks it up here if I take the notes. Okay, here we go. Jesus expresses the principle that forgiveness cannot be for one and not the other. This corrects forgiveness to destroy, which says, I forgive, but will never forget your terrible sin. The ego's distorted version of forgiveness rests on the belief that differences are real. We are being taught by Jesus to realize that the terrible sin came from the fear that mirrors our own, and we know that fear is the result of believing we are bodies. We need to realize that the apparent differences in form among God's sons belie the underlying sameness of the mind's content of fear and our natural inheritance as children of guilt. Yet since fear is unreal, as are the sin and guilt that caused it, so too is the world that arose from them. Illusions breed illusions. Unreal causes have only unreal effects. As one son, we suffer from the same horrific nightmare of believing we killed God and crucified his son. We all need help because we share the same insanity as well as the need to awaken from it. This world's only purpose. Having made the world to attack God's love by establishing a world of special love, we now go within and ask Jesus for help to shift our mind's purpose for the dreaming sonship. The world then takes on the different meaning that reason has given it. Innocence instead of sin, healing in place of attack and death. To be God's son means to be God's one son, meaning that the sonship is perceived as whole. To see differences as real shatters our unity and re-crucifies God's son on a cross of sin and guilt. Yet remembering to laugh at the tiny mad idea wipes away our hopelessness and despair, and the memory of the self quietly dawns on our forgiven mind. And there you go. Let's change our purpose of the.
Can you read that first couple sentences there? Because that struck me, especially your first.
The first ones I said?
Yes, ma'am.
Jesus expresses the principle that forgiveness cannot be for one and not the other. So in other words, forgiveness is for everybody or nobody at all.
What was the next sentence?
This corrects forgiveness to destroy. This corrects forgiveness to destroy, which says, I forgive, but will never forget your terrible sin.
Right.
Shall I keep going?
Yeah, and that's the difference between regular forgiveness in the world.
The ego's distorted.
No, that was the part. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh yeah, that's the part where it talks about the difference between true forgiveness versus, right. So when we do the true forgiveness, we're actually saying that nothing happened, and we're knowing that and becoming that knowing, where your mind just rests in God with that one thought, that you're home, and the memory of that. So that's when the innocent world is seen, because one's mind stays there as you appear to walk around in the script. You're still doing stuff until your script runs out, right? But yeah, perfect, 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 perfect.
Yeah,
Yay.
and with that, I know that it's easy to know when you're not using true forgiveness, because you might think you forgave it all, and then a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever goes by, and you think, well, I remember when you did that last time. Then you didn't true forgive, or it would be gone.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of
Yeah,
it's
and
like
we're always
you
like
did the
chipping
ego
away.
forgiveness.
We're chipping away really like slowly. So sometimes it's like a pretty big thing. And so we can't even fault ourselves for that and say, oh, well, gosh, I didn't forgive really truly. And darn it, that was a week ago. Why am I thinking of that again? No, because like a lot of times it's a really big piece and you just are taking little bits
Yeah.
off of it. And it appears as if it comes back the same. A lot of people are like, I forgave and it never seems like anything works, or I'm having the same upsets come up again. But literally it will begin to whittle away.
Yeah.
It might take, I don't know, 1,000 on one kind of thing. I think it's 1,000,000 when
Yes.
you're done.
It could take more than one lifetime.
Exactly.
Never know.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Oh, sorry, everybody. We're all going to be like,
Yeah.
leave the webinar now. It's taking too long. I'm out of here. Right. Does anybody
A
else have
slow
more to
burn
share?
sometimes.
Say again?
I said sometimes it's the slow burn.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nancy Abraham, I would love to hear what you have to say. Just don't forget to unmute yourself. She's in Cotter.
Hello, everyone. Actually, you kind of spoiled what I was going to say, Sue-Ann, so I'm just going to add to it. That kind of triggered me a lot. I think the one on the question. And so I have written that all questions asked within the world are but a way of looking, not as a question asked. A question asked in hate cannot be answered because it is not an answer in itself. It is an answer in itself. And I thought that was kind of powerful because we do this a lot. I do this a lot. What can I do to change the world? What's my purpose? What's my, how can I fix my friend's problems? And what should I do for work? And it's like we're constantly making it real. And I never saw it that way. It's kind of a very interesting perspective where we think we're asking questions like, God, help me, Holy Spirit, help me to help my friend, or help me to decide what I want to do. And those are all questions making this world real. And I don't know, it hit home. And in doing so, we are saying the separation is real too, right? That this needs to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And so basically they're saying when we ask questions, but no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ended. So basically fear and separation. I mean, this is constant. And an honest answer asks no sacrifice, which is also very beautiful, because I do this a lot. I always think that, oh, now I have to work harder, or now I have to study harder, or now I have to, I have to give up something for something. And so, anyways, that was my big takeaway. I think a lot of other stuff but that was the one that really hit home for me. So thank you.
Totally. And isn't it like it's almost like unraveling this game we've been playing, and now we could see a little deeper, like, wow, we made it that way, and we want to not solve our problem, even though we think we want to solve a problem. Correct. But we're afraid to solve a problem, because then if we solve a problem, then there won't be an us, and we're really scared of that. Yeah, it's just really, really. And that's why it really happens very slowly, actually, that Holy Spirit is slowly like, you're aiming way too low, you're not thinking big enough. I'm here to tell you that, your complete freedom of not having any guilt, and, and really having no purpose other than to accept the atonement for yourself. And then you literally go into where you have like no goals and achievements, and that's a very interesting place to be as well, because it's so opposite of the world, right? So opposite.
100%. It's 100% of where I am too. So I'm trying to practice it in a way where, okay, if I'm inspired to do it, I'll do it, but I have no attachment anymore. I'm really practicing this where I will apply, I will do that, but let go. Like whatever it's written, it's done. My job is just to flow with the with whatever is going on. But it is hard when we have so many questions, because we're all very uncertain right now, right? And so we want answers, but there's only one answer.
But you could also bring all of those questions to Holy Spirit and be like, I really want to know, how to get rid of fear. And I know that's not even the right way to answer it or ask it. Please help me.
Right.
And then, but it's that clearing of the mind to like receive an answer that's completely different. And that's why it takes a while, because you don't even know if you heard it right at first. And I know a lot of people are even talking about that in the last couple of days on some of the Facebook pages, that, like, how do you even know your Holy Spirit? And it's trial and error. It's just really, it's a process, right? Totally. Okay. Anybody else want to share? Karen, yay. She's in, what city are you in, Karen, exactly?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I live in Kent, which is the
Kent.
county, which is sort of down from London towards the coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, nice to see you all. I just wanted, I'm not sure now whether I haven't got the book, whether I've listened too far into Ken, but what struck me with the bit I listened to, and I hope it's the right bit, is that he was talking about the body, and then he started talking about illness and pain, and he was saying that about using magic, because it's not a course in masochism. Yes.
Masochism. Yeah, that's where you're like hurting yourself. Yeah.
I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, and this this probably a bit off track, but it made me think of David Hoffmeister, because I was watching him this week, and he was in a group, and the man running the group said to him, you've probably seen this yourself, said to him, can you speak? And the Holy Spirit was telling him to wait. David Hoffmeister, he said, no, you must wait, the Holy Spirit was saying. And eventually in came this woman, and she said, she was crying, and she said, I've just been told I've got terminal cancer and all that. And she talked about it for 15 minutes. And David Hoffmeister realised that's who he'd been waiting for. And she said, how am I going to deal with this? I've told all my family I don't get ill, and because I'm an AKIM student. And he said, the Holy Spirit came to him and said, no, your purpose is to go to the hospital and be the light of the world. That's what the Holy Spirit's telling me, and portray that to the doctors and so forth. So it's taken me just into a bit of a reflection on pain and illness this week for some reason, but that's all I was gonna I'm not ill, but I was gonna say that's where it took me. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yes. So, there's so much all through the course about pain, and that healing is always of the mind, because we are only mind, and then I hear what David's talking about. So if the script is written, then that may be on your script, and, maybe on my script, I don't know, my husband's script, whatever. So, and then as we go in, then if we are not choosing to believe the body's real, then we would be the light of the world wherever we went, even in the chemotherapy receiving room, or at the radiation area, or all the nurses that you're talking with and the doctors. And so, I don't know how that would play out. I mean, look at the end of Jesus's life, right? It's like the light of the world as he's, being crucified, basically, right?
Yes, quite. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then that demonstrates that the body is not real. And as you teach it and you demonstrate, you are strengthening the ideas in yourself. which comes out of, I don't know why I keep like, I'm so focused on the page 1 introduction of manual for teachers, because there's just so much, just that one page about there's 2 thought systems, and we're always demonstrating, which one we believe, and that we're setting up a curriculum of the course for what we want to learn. So then as we are strengthening the ideas in ourselves by teaching, we learn that we never can give to anyone else, but only to ourselves, and that we learn by teaching. So, but teaching is you're just walking around the world, you're at the grocery store. So like you said, wherever you're going, then you be the light of the world, because that's what you want to teach yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't even know what time it is. Let me look. We still have time for another person on that before we go into forgiveness in the field. Anybody else want to share? Even if you didn't listen, but you heard some of the topics that we're talking about, anything strike you, or there's no forced sharing, and we don't have to have any more sharing, but okay, cool. That's fine. So now we could go into the forgiveness in the field, and I'll start first, because and raise your hands if you have anything you want to share, anything that's on your mind or whatever. And I probably would share for myself, so I almost don't really have individual things that I'm remembering that I was even forgiving. It's really, really strange. I think probably what I would say is I'm noticing how every thought, almost every thought without an exception, is a thought that I made to make a world, and my interpretation. Oh my gosh, doesn't that go back to the first workbook lessons? It seemed like, oh, those are a waste, those early ones. Like, why am I carrying if I gave all the meaning to a waste paper basket, but it's really, it circles all back around, and you realize that I've completely always been making scenarios and stories of like who I am and who I am to other people, and what are they to me, and it very much like a novel is what I'm seeing it to be, or a movie or a book, same as a novel, but you know what I mean? So basically, forgiving every time I try to set up scenarios of what things are according to Sue Ann. And so then what happens is it goes back to just like a quiet center with just one thought. It's almost like thoughtlessness, the absence of thought. It's very hard to explain because it's so different than all of this. Generally, a situation would happen, or you think, oh, I'm going to meet with someone for lunch, and then it's all these past thoughts of what we've been to each other that I made up, and what, guilt things, happy things, feeling slighted, feeling unfairly treated, whatever all these different things are, I bring to that person with me, like as if I made up a story I'm watching on TV. So that's been really, really interesting for me in just, staying in Holy Spirit mind of just hearing that and seeing that, and choosing not to think that. And that's, basically how we rule our mind. I rule my mind, which I alone must rule. So each one of ourselves is accepting the atonement for themselves. And that's what that means. And then, some people are like, well, that sounds so selfish, but then everyone is in your mind. Everyone is there, and everything is there. In fact, I didn't even go to a party earlier this week because I just really didn't even have a need to go. My husband was ill, and I decided to stay back with him. But there was attraction to a party, and it was just kind of like, I'm already with everyone and I'm already doing everything. There's nothing more to go do. And I think even Nancy was kind of made me think of that earlier, just a little while ago, was I need do nothing. I do things, but I need do nothing. So you do what's on the script that's playing out before you, and you move through it, but you don't need to do it. Sounds like Buddha or something, right? Anyway, so Eli raised her hand. She's got something, forgiveness in the field. Something was going on with her, and she's up there in Canada camping. So it looks so beautiful there. Go ahead, Eli.
Alrighty. I'll just share the same one that I shared last night. Here we are, yes, camping. And to build your campfire, it's in a square steel or metal thing that you put all your wood and you burn. Well, I don't know exactly how it happened, but my leg, after the fire was going for quite some time and everything's really, really hot, decided to touch it with my leg. Truthfully, not on purpose or anything, but the burn, severe, like the pain was just crazy. And it's about half the size of a mouse, this mark on my leg now. But I immediately knew, okay, I feel pain means go ask for Holy Spirit help, and let's start forgiving this situation and recognizing that it's not real. There's nothing there. Nothing happened. So what I find amazing is that yes, there's a burn mark there, except no blistering, which should have blistered like crazy. I mean, cause we're talking fire here. And I went and had my shower that evening and didn't feel anything. No pain. I mean, initially for that, while I was doing the forgiveness, there was severe pain, but it ended really fast. And now it looks like a really cool birthmark. I'm amazed. Like, it just amazes me how using this true forgiveness process just puts an end to things. Like, wow. So that's my forgiveness.
Really, really cool. Yeah, and one thing we do have to remember too is that sometimes we don't see a change in the world. But sometimes you will. Like, you may actually have less symptoms, but sometimes it doesn't change anything. And we can sometimes get hooked up into that, like, I'm going to do forgiveness so that my room gets cleaned, or, or find a good parking spot.
No.
And then we've looped ourselves back into it. Yeah. Right back into the world.
Because you have to be sure that you're not, through your forgiveness, making it real. Like, to me, looking for that parking spot and using forgiveness, that's kind of making that parking spot real, and it's not really there anyway. And as much as I had, say, good fortune, I guess, with my forgiveness and this burn, that doesn't happen to me all the time. Like, there's not always an immediate solution.
Right.
But the forgiveness regardless is still the number one thing that you need to do, no matter what. Don't make anything else real, whether there's a good outcome or not. It's not real.
Yeah.
Right. And then that switches your viewpoint from looking with the ego to looking with Holy Spirit. And then you remember nothing is happening, and then you actually can laugh at it. And sometimes, sometimes you have to put burn cream on it, or you have to do different things. And, but, with the script being written, like, okay, when you talk about the parking spot, what happened to me is that I don't ask Holy Spirit, help me find the best parking spot. I just listened almost like for what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then I'm shown, and then I do it. So it's not really a guidance. It's more like of seeing a little bit of the future, and then not having resistance to continue to look with him and not look with the ego. Because sometimes it's bad things. Remember I told him my husband getting ill, and he's continued to be ill with this condition he has. And we saw it coming and we couldn't avoid it. And we're just that's where it is. But we're not suffering over it. It's just a part of the script. We're going along and we're learning things actually on it. So it's very interesting with pain and healing.
Yeah.
And he's taking some measures to help himself. Although he has some resistance to doing that because,
We're all still learning.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Who is that? Oh, Tom, right?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. And then Nancy's next.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure I understand. Please help me. Like, I've never thought about this. Why would I try to say, like, if I burn myself, hurt myself, whatever, why am I don't understand about what am I forgiving if I'm applying this to myself. Like, okay, I got burnt, like, all right, cream on it. Like, what's the purpose of having to apply forgiveness, and how do I do that to a burn? Doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm just going with the flow. If it's in the script, take care of it, move on. Like, is it some sort of issue I need to like pay attention to? Is there like guilt coming in and covering me up? I don't know.
Tom, for me, what it is anything that, say, interferes with peace or joy,
Okay.
to me, I forgive it. And so the minute I felt pain, because if I feel the pain, I'm making it real. And that's sort of what I'm forgiving. If that makes it sound like more of the ego forgiveness, but it's a matter of joining with the Holy Spirit and recognizing that none of this that is happening to interfere with my joy and my peace, it's not real. And so with that, I just let go of it with the Holy Spirit's help. And that's why when I feel pain, that's the sort of forgiveness I do. And like forgiveness in that situation, I guess kind of sounds like a funny word to use, but
Right.
I just try and be with the Holy Spirit, recognize that none of this is real, and so just easily let go of it and maintain my peace and my joy. Does that help?
Okay. I understand that.
Yes. Can I kind of butt in? I don't know. For me, like the way I see it, like Eli's example, I don't know if you've watched The Matrix.
Yep.
Yeah, I love The Matrix. From the day I saw The Matrix, I was in love with
Yep.
The Matrix. But it's the same concept, where I know it sounds wacky in a bit, but I mean, it's where Neo got shot, but then he didn't die, right? Because he knew that he wasn't physically there. He was physically somewhere else. Like his true essence is not this body. And so my understanding of the Course is as we forgive, we're also lifting the illusion and realizing we are not this body. And because the healing occurs in the mind, so does the pain. The more we forgive, the less I may be making things up, but I feel like the less then we believe that we deserve to suffer, right? Because right now we believe that we deserve to be punished, we're guilty, we should be burnt. This burn should hurt me and I should suffer. But the more I'm cleaning up this inner guilt, then the less I will suffer. I will still experience this life, but it won't be as suffering or will not be as painful. Because ideally, the reason at least I'm doing the Course is because I'm finding the peace in it, right? And eventually it will transmit into the material world that I see, into my illusion in more ways, and that would include the physical. So I don't know, that's my interpretation, but.
Thanks, Nancy. I think you explained it really well.
And you don't have to forgive something if you're not upset about it.
Right.
Yeah, then there's nothing to forgive.
Right. So you go along, and as upsets come, they call it a grievance, upset, whatever, through your day, then, and if you don't want it anymore, you can keep it if you want. We have for a very long time. But if it bothers you and you don't want it anymore, then that's when you would take it to that forgiveness process. And forgiveness is kind of a strange word. I kind of don't like it either, right? Because it just keeps bringing us back to this idea of where this forgiveness to destroy, which is that I had a friend, he no longer talks to me. And so I hate him. But to his face, I'm going to say, oh, I forgive you. But I'm continuing to remember that upset. And that keeps coming up, right? So as that comes up, then that can be considered like a slow burn, so that when it pops up, I forgive it again and again and again until I don't even remember that even happening, basically, and I'm not affected by it anymore. And it undoes the ego. is what it does, because those things are, they're big chunks of ideas of sacrifice and fear and hate that, and it's also that we've been looking so much. So we're learning to not look with the ego and to keep looking with the Holy Spirit, because the ego never changes from what it is. It's always 100% awful. And we don't make it nicer. So we're learning to switch our view. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that Nancy, you were going to do, was what you shared what you wanted to share, or would you like to say more?
No, I was actually just gonna share a little more.
Yes,
Doesn't
please.
mean I'm successful. But I figured nobody else is talking, why not share some more?
Go for it.
So I think being in this part of the world too, I think we're exposed to a lot more stuff than we would be, whether in the US or anywhere else. Your news is a little more protected than ours, and well, I think all news anyway is made up, but it's been very interesting being in the region, as things are constantly changing unexpectedly, and it's definitely pushing the buttons. So it's really difficult to go back to this world is not real, nothing is really happening. It's extremely difficult. And there's always this inner fear in me as to like, when's it gonna come get me, you know? So it's a very interesting projection right now that I'm feeling. And I've noticed too, where I've become more aggressive. And so it's a very interesting concept where I'm usually more, I'm not passive by any means, but I'm more of, okay, these are the rules, this is the policy, I'll follow the rules and I'll be nice. But now I'm just finding myself aggressive in many ways, because I think this all is nonsense. And it's been very interesting. And I've noticed that even though I'm, what's the word? I'm achieving what I'm wanting, right? But I'm also using the ego with that too. Like even if I'm passive, I'm accepting this stupidity. And then if I'm acting on the stupidity, I'm also believing in the stupidity. And so this is a very funny place to be. And that's kind of where I've observed myself in the past 2 days, is to like, what am I doing? And because both ends of the extreme are the same. And so anyway, that's just an observation. That's all I'm sharing. Nothing, I haven't achieved anything. I'm just observing.
Oh my gosh. You don't even realize observing is like the first huge achievement, right? Because we haven't observed for so long. Yeah. Just pat yourself on the back.
I'm always
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very interesting. So I was hearing all these things in my mind when you were speaking about symbolism, so the world is like a symbol of, what is it? I forgot what that line is in the text about how that, it's an outside projection of an inward condition, right? So what you're seeing all these beautiful symbols of all these opposites. And I love it that, like you're just kind of like not believing in those rules anymore, just because they were there and someone said so. They don't make any sense. They're not reasonable. They're not good for people, or whatever, you're feeling, right? So, and then to look at that, I think it's awesome. I think it's amazing. And the other bizarre thing I heard was, not bizarre, but I don't know why I came up with that word, but was that, so, okay, I've been in the US for like my whole life, right? And I've been living in this one particular town, and I've always kept getting this feeling that the reason for it, like on the script, just for me, only for me. Now for you, it's going to be what you're doing. Oh my gosh, there's so much, like turmoil and things to learn from. It's like just full of forgiveness things to grab and do, right? And then mine is like kind of like weirdly the opposite. So it's very quiet here, as far as government and weather, even in many ways. And so then it has afforded me like a way to almost have like a quietude to go inward more. But that does not mean that looking out and having lots of things come at you from the outside does not progress your growth very fast also. It's different ways. So I just thought that was interesting to bring up, that we find ourselves in different places, different ages, different races, different, some are male, some are female, some never marry, some always marry, whatever, some have kids, don't have kids, all these different examples, but we're all learning so much. I guess is what I would wrap that thought up with. But yeah, I was just like streaming in like all these thoughts, right? Yeah, amazing. Shalom, I didn't hear you talk last weekend. I know, she's like, oh my God, and Kathy would be cool to hear from. And Tina, y'all are so awesome. Does anybody have any cool thing they want to say? Or maybe uncool? Just be uncool. Just do it.
Well, I will say that, just to comment on the forgiveness process, forgiveness also means true perception. So, when something is causing us pain, for very first thing, we've chosen the pain, so it'll keep us wrapped, keep us staying in this world, keep us staying in the dream. And, and so then and if it, like Sue Ann said, if it's not causing you any pain, it ain't no big deal. There ain't nothing there to forgive. But, that true perception, that always helps to bring me back, because that's what forgiveness really is, according to A Course in Miracles. Just true perception, seeing things through the eyes of truth rather than through the eyes of ego. And, so that's why. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. And then the forgiveness process is basically like you realize that you have an upset, which we were just talking about. And if you don't have one, you won't even see it. So, but you have to realize that first, and then you bring it to Holy Spirit, and that's really important too, because many people just say, I'm forgiving, and they're just looking around forgiving. And at first, pretty much they're doing it just themselves. And then they will be like wondering, like, why am I not kind of getting any traction here and feeling any different? And it was because basically they're probably still kind of doing the forgiveness to destroy to some extent. So one has to completely not have oneself in the process. You have to be like gone. And that's why I talked about those, don't come with your questions already answered. In fact, you almost have to come with no question. I can agree now that I don't like the way I feel, and that's in Rules for Decision, which is really, really a great part about just that total surrender. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing, and I've tried so many things, swirling thoughts, and I'm just tired of it, and then that way you come, without a question answered already. And then the last part, which I find is really, really important, is because I see this on Facebook pages a lot, Course in Miracles Facebook pages, is that people don't replace the thought system with the true perception that Kathy was just talking about. So yeah, and then that's like super important. I mean, but you can stop along the way, different places, and you'll learn. And so I've kind of fooled around with this for 5 years, and was terrible at it 5 years ago. Was making no traction. But yeah, but then you have to replace it with Holy Spirit thoughts, or Holy Spirit thought system, or whatever the heck you want, Holy Spirit mind, whatever you want to call it. I've been crucified for calling it Holy Spirit mind. Where's that in the book? Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's just an experience. It's an experience. Have the experience, and then you look back and you're like, oh wow, yeah, the book does explain it the best. But now it's like I'm on that backside of trying to say what that is.
Yeah, and too, sometimes it feels like the pain is not letting up. And generally, almost always, that's because we're still choosing it, and we're still choosing it because we're terrified of disappearing into the heart of God. That's the big thing behind all pain, all suffering, is our fear of losing ourselves into the heart of God. There's a chapter in the Course called The Fear of Redemption. That, and this past year, I've been dealing with a lot of that. So that's why it's so on my mind. So thanks.
Yeah, I think it says, well, like what we really fear is redemption. Exactly. And so we set up this entire game, And I love to call it a game that kind of like lessens it, makes it not like so awful. Like I'm not a terrible person. And then also to think of it as a thought system. So it's not a boogeyman. It's not coming to get us. It's not the devil. It's a system. It's a system of thoughts to think with, and then when you're in Holy Spirit mind or whatever you want to call it, you're not even thinking anymore. And that's literally when I type the stuff I do during the day, on Facebook pages, that's not coming from the little Sue Ann at all. Little Sue Ann is like a hater. She hates everything, like Mikey, right? Give it to Mikey. He hates everything. So that's a commercial that was for Life cereal, I think, in the 60s here in America. And I think it was up in Canada too, but it was just funny. Shalom, I think you were trying to raise your hand. Can you unmute yourself? Boy,
Hi.
you're in more light today, even though I know it's
Yeah.
late there.
Yeah. I just, this line, like who would react to figures in a dream if they knew that they were dreaming? That's helped a lot this week. Like every time I had a reaction and that line would come up and then instantly it takes the charge out of it, So
Mom,
yeah,
can
just
you
wanted to share
repeat that? Can you repeat that line?
Who would react to figures in a dream if they but knew that they were dreaming?
Ah,
That one, and also nothing so blinding as perception of form. Those two things somehow,
Gives me goosebumps.
instantly it's like, yeah. So yeah, that's up this week.
Yeah, and that is on it starts with the bottom of page 587. It goes to the top of the next. It's right here at the end of 27. It says, the secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. And everybody's been talking about this, right? No matter what the form of attack, this is still true. Whoever takes the role of enemy or of attacker, because we go back and forth, right? Still, this is the truth. Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain and suffering you feel, this is still true. For you would not react at all to figures in a dream you knew you were dreaming. Let them be as hateful and as vicious as they may. They could have no effect on you unless you fail to recognize it is your dream. I swear, like, he doesn't mess around. Jesus is like, ooh, yeah. Yeah, and like, oh yeah, I forgot it was my dream. Yeah. So it's really funny because, like when one begins to talk or teach, out in like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just talking about this experience, and you get hate, you get love. I call it the Hollywood effect. You get all these different things, and like almost like a bell curve of all kinds of responses, and so then I'm always remembering that there's only me, mind, and that's where everyone is. And so when I hear different people's responses, I'm seeing it as either like my own ego trying to doubt and say, hey, keep looking with me. You can't possibly be, teaching. You can't possibly be saying the right thing. You can't possibly be in Holy Spirit mind, all these different things, right? And then others that do like it, I actually get more out of the naysayers because then that gives me more fuel for forgiveness. And it's the ego talking to me and saying all those things. Please keep paying attention to me or I'll disappear, and I don't want to disappear. Tina's on there. Yay. Go ahead, Tina. This is Eli's daughter, and she's on the west coast of Canada, right?
Yeah, west coast of Canada. So yeah, haven't seen mom in a long time because of COVID. So hopefully I get to see mom soon. So that's one of the reasons I appreciate the Zoom calls, because I get to hang out with you guys and hang out with mom. But this is cool. I love like hearing about the forgiveness process, because I think as we keep going, it deepens, right? So our process probably changes a little bit, because I still feel like I'm doing the forgiveness process while I'm in the ego mind. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? You're in the dream, but you're doing a process that gets you out of the dream. It's weird. But I love talking about pain also, like Karen and even Sue Ann with your husband, because I get a lot of migraines, but I find since doing the forgiveness process, the pain is almost gone. It's weird. It's still a migraine, because I get this pressure in my eye and this just a feeling in my head, but the pain is really subsiding. So and the fight in me is kind of going away too. Like I'm just like, oh well, whatever, it's a migraine. I just take a pill and I usually rest. Like I don't try to push myself anymore. So it's still in the dream. I'm not in the Holy Spirit mind, but it is making a little bit of change in the dream. But like I could still, this body could decide to be sick still, or still have migraines, even if I get to, remember, get out of the ego mind and be in the Holy Spirit mind. So, because it's a body, right? I was reading a lot this week on like how pain and pleasure are the same, even though we always want pleasure for the body and we make all these decisions in our life to like keep our body safe and, like give ourselves pleasure. Like almost everything we do here is for our body. It's just crazy. So that really, like, I was like, wow, I get it. Like I get a little bit more, it just kind of helps you get a little deeper and deeper, but I'm always focused on the pain, but it's also pleasure on the other side also has just as much meaning in the dream. It's like everything we do, we want to retire because we want the safety net, we want a house because we need a place to put our bodies, we need a bed, like all this stuff for the body. Crazy.
Beautiful. Yeah, perfect. And like that party that I was going to go to, like I knew that if I went, I get like a little drunk, a little tipsy, and then I'd be just like, ooh, and I would feel almost like I'd usurped heaven, and I was making a little bit of heaven here, like in the pleasure zone, right? And then afterwards I was talking to people and they're like, oh my God, it was an amazing party. And I'm like, that's a crazy word, because okay, then that means that there's some things that aren't amazing. And then so like, why
That's
do I
so-
want a world where it's like amazing and not amazing and all this stuff, right?
That's so
God
great.
is just steady. It's just like peace, love, joy, and no next thing.
Right.
Something you can actually count on. Who's talking? I hear someone.
That's great. Well, that was me.
Tom's talking.
That's Tom. Yeah. He's like,
Yeah, that's really good. Like, oh, how could that party be amazing? Really? Like, it's not amazing elsewhere.
exactly. Yeah. And so where I stayed was actually very calm and centered, but then again, that's a forgiveness thing, because then people said it was amazing. Then you go into that fear of missing out. Like, oh, well, why wasn't I there? And if I'd been there, then I would have had a little piece of heaven or something. But see how we're always trying to get a little piece of heaven here, and we're always like trying to search for that. Someone said, oh, well, there'll be another party that you can come to or whatever. Like, do I have to wait for that? Like, I have to wait for heaven for that party. Yeah, it's just funny. The pleasure thing is goofy too.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Oh, always searching and never really finding. That's the MO of the ego. Yeah. Oh gosh, it's already time, you guys. I'm going to probably wrap it up here, and I don't know when we're having speakers again. Probably in in a month or two, and but we're going to do 3:30 to 4 on the video next time. And then I know that Jared's going to put up another one, because we'll still be on 28 and 29. We're not to the end of the text yet. And I don't know what will happen after that. I kind of hope to do the journey through the workbook, because that'd be really cool too. Go through that as well. But anyway, so I'm gonna, if everyone can unmute their own lines here, I'm sure there's a way I can do it, but I don't know how. And say goodbye, good night, Thank you, everybody, and love you all. And I'm going to stop the recording, and we could hang out a little while afterwards if you'd like. Okay, good night. Good
Okay,
good
bye,
morning.
Good night,
everybody.
goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Love
Bye.
and
Bye.
peace.